Okay, this is the May 17th meeting of the Cleveland Heights University Heights Public Library Board of Trustees. I'll call the roll. Ms. Carlisle, Ms. Crenshaw,
Here.
Ms. Llewellyn,
Here.
Mr. Gerbach,
Here.
Ms. Iwamoto,
Here.
Mr. McTighe,
Here.
Mr. Tarakia.
Here.
I certify that the notification of this meeting of the Library Board of Trustees has been made. Our first item is approval of the minutes from the April 12th joint meeting with Cleveland Heights City Council, University Heights City Council, and the Cleveland Heights University Heights School Board, and also our regular meeting from April 19th. Did anybody find any corrections, additions, or deletions that are needed for the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? We'll move on to the Operations Committee and the financial reports. Everything is doing well, other than, in fact, even our Star Ohio interest account has gone up to an interest rate of 0.08 from 0.07. So at least it hasn't gone down any further. Our public library fund is starting to get a little bit lower, but the estimate that we're operating under was prepared in July, and it will be amended in June. And at that point in time, we'll reduce it in the budget. Our month-to-date expenses and year-to-date expenses are still not as high as last year, but we had up to 12 people that we've been not have on payroll. So I would expect by the June payroll will be 100% at a full complement. So the June monthlies will be comparable, but the fiscal year-to-date will still be lighter for this year because of the fact in January through May, we were still short-staffed with things. 33% of the year is done. We've received 49% of the revenue. We're not on Facebook or on YouTube.
Debbie, it says that it says recording live on YouTube.
Was it? Oh, I'm sorry, maybe I didn't refresh.
Okay. I just love technology. So our revenues are at 49%, but our expenditures are only at 24%. Part of that is because we're still short-staffed. And as you know, later in the agenda, we have a resolution to approve renewing our health insurance. And we have budgeted for a 12% increase. And right now, Cigna offered us only a 5% increase. So that will end up saving us some money during the fiscal year. Anybody have any questions on the financials? Do I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Mr. Tarakia?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The next resolution is to amend our permanent appropriation budget, as we've been discussing over the last few meetings about making improvements to our Coventry branch. And we bought the property north to the Noble branch and are starting to look at how can we make improvements to that. So we would like to move, appropriate $4 million out of the general fund, transfer out, and move that money to the buildings and repair fund. And then this is the appropriation this is the resolution to appropriate it. And then the next one will be permission to transfer. So any questions about amending the appropriation in order to be able to do the transfer? Do I have a motion to approve the appropriation change?
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, on the roll, Ms. Carlisle,
Yes.
Ms. Crenshaw,
Yes.
Ms. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mr. Gerbach,
Yes.
Ms. Iwamoto,
Yes.
Mr. McTighe,
Yes.
Mr. Toracchio.
Yes.
So then the next resolution per board policy and state law, the board has to approve any fund-to-fund transfers. So this is a resolution to approve taking $4 million out of the general fund and putting it into the building and repair fund. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Carlisle,
Yes.
Ms. Crenshaw,
Yes.
Ms. Llewellyn,
Yes. Sorry, I was still on mute.
Mr. Gerbach,
Yes.
Ms. Iwamoto,
Yes.
Mr. McTighe,
Yes.
Mr. Toracchio.
Yes.
The next resolution is to approve the county tax budget. By state law, we have to submit annually a tax budget to the County Budget Commission, which is made up of the auditor, treasurer, and county prosecutor. And they review tax budgets to make sure any of the entities that have voted tax levies are showing the need for the county to levy our taxes, because they do have the authority to not levy all of the money the voters have been approved if they feel we're not justifying what the expenditures are. So we're asking for 11 million in revenue for next year, and 2.4 million of it hopefully will be from the public library fund. And it also, when I prepared the tax budget, I made an allowance to show the 4 million coming out for the BNR fund this year and also for next year, so we'd be able to do all the improvements we have. And probably, I think in September is when the county would have in-person meetings, and I don't even think we had Zoom in the fall last year because the county still had offices and people working from home, but I would expect this year we'll at least have a Zoom meeting with the County Budget Commission to talk about what's happening with delinquent collections and property appraisals and items like that. Does anybody have any questions? Do I have a motion?
I motion.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Ms. Carlisle,
Yes.
Ms. Crenshaw,
Yes.
Ms. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mr. Gerbach,
Yes.
Ms. Iwamoto,
Yes.
Mr. McTighe,
Yes.
Mr. Toracchio.
Yes.
The next item is a continuation of building and repairs improvements we began making with touchless door entries. We have them at Lee Road and at the H-Kick, but now this is a resolution to upgrade all of the bathroom doors between Lee Road and the H-Kick, and that is 10 different doors between men's and women's and family and single ones and all that. So this is a resolution to spend $29,148 out of the building and repair fund to make all the restroom doors at Lee Road and the H-Kick handicap accessible. Anything you could add to that, Ms. Levin? I know Mr. Toracchio says he's enjoyed with his children coming to the library with the touchless door entry system. That seems to be a big thing with little ones these days. It's like our magic wand and all that. So do I have a motion to approve?
I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Ms. Carlisle,
Yes.
Ms. Crenshaw,
Yes.
Ms. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mr. Gerbach,
Yes.
Ms. Iwamoto,
Yes.
Mr. McTighe,
Yes.
Mr. Toracchio.
Yes.
Next resolution is the approval of a furniture purchase for the local history room on the second floor of Lee Road. Ms. Levin, could you speak to this one a little bit?
Nancy, do you want to do this or do you want me to?
Or Kim?
I'm fine either way. Go ahead. Okay. So the bid you see before you is a result of a lot of research that's been done by Chuck Collins, the Adult Services Manager, and Jessica Robinson, the local history librarian. They did talk to 4 different furniture vendors, most of whom we've worked with in some way in the past. They chose Verco based on the products that they had available in order to create a cohesive look for the new local history room, which will be on the 2nd floor at Lee Road in what had been the quiet study room for many years. So I know it's a heftier price tag, and typically our furniture purchases are lower than, they don't typically come to you because usually they're lower than the threshold for asking for board permission to make the purchase. But I just didn't want any of you to really look at this and have a lot of sticker shock. This is really going to outfit the entire room and should last a long time. Verco products are throughout this building in particular. They made the computer sort of cubicles that you see in YSD and ASD. They did the shelving that we replaced a few years ago in the browsing area, and also all of the new, well, newish at this point, shelving in the AV room at Lee Road as well. So it's going to be a nice quality product that they do for us. We've had no problems with them or their service. And again, even though it's a little bit of a heftier price tag than you might than we might usually do, we feel confident this is an investment, and it's certainly worth. We've spent so much time figuring out all of the services that we've done for local history, and we've expanded those services over the course of the last 6 years by both women that have held that local history librarian job. So if there, I don't know if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I think Nancy would be as well.
The shelving in that room is not the same size as regular book shelving because some of the boxes that we store things in are for flat storage and they're archival. And so we needed a little more space for some of the shelving. And then some of the equipment we've already purchased. We purchased the book scanner a few years ago with the intention of putting it on the floor, which we can do now. And also we ordered a microfilm reader that also prints and is digital, which is much nicer than the 20-year-old one we had.
30-year-old.
So we're very excited to get this room up and going, and we know there's a ton of interest in the community for these services.
If there are any questions, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
Okay, I'll give it to Ms. Llewellyn and Ms. Iwamoto a second. Ms. Carlisle. You can
Yes.
just nod your head. Ms. Crenshaw,
Yes.
Ms. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mr. Gerbach,
Yes.
Ms. Iwamoto,
Yes.
Mr. Tighe, McTighe.
Yeah. Yes. I was like, who's that?
I left an MC out, I'm sorry. Mr. Tarakia.
Yes.
The next resolution is authority to open a new investment account. The state treasurer's office has been running 2 investment accounts that are a statewide pool for local governments to get better interest rates than if they went out on their own. The Star Ohio program is still in operation, but they've decided to do away with the Star Plus program, and Meter Investment that also has our investment portfolio is going to take it over under the blessing of the state treasurer's office, and it's called the Government Insured Deposit Program. They've done a lot of legwork because to sign up banks, because they will end up being able to take up to $25 million from governments. And as you know, most banks only give FDIC insurance for deposits of less than $250,000. So in order to be able to have 25 million in insurance, that means they've gone to an awful lot of banks to get contracts in that. And they're stating that they're going to offer the initial interest rate of 0.10. And as I said earlier, the Star Ohio program is only at 0.18, so for an extra 0.02, I'll probably transfer part of the Star Ohio money in there to just get a little bit more money. And it has overnight liquidity, the same as the other Star program. It's just it's only buying FDIC insurance through the banks. It's not buying treasury notes or Federal Home Loan Bank credits or commercial paper and that. So they're not long-term things. Does anybody have any questions?
No, but I have a name for this account. We're going to
Yes.
call it the Giddy Up account.
Okay,
GIDP. Okay.
do I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Ms. Carlisle,
Yes.
Ms. Crenshaw,
Yes.
Ms. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mr. Gerbach,
Giddy up. I mean, yes.
Ms. Iwamoto,
Yes.
Mr. McTighe,
Yes.
Mr. Tarakia.
Yes.
Personnel report. Nancy, you want to take this one?
Yes, Lori submitted this report. We have 2 new full-time positions that we've created. One is a full-time security officer, and that person will be scheduled from Tuesday through Saturday, which will give us a lot of backup and some depth just in case we need to send someone to another building, as well as helping us with the new responsibility of managing the meeting rooms. The other full-time position is a new tech, I just want to make sure I get the right word, tech trainer, not assistant. And that one was, both jobs were created out of taking hours from part-time jobs and putting them together into a full-time job. We've been holding many interviews still for the strategic projects manager and other positions, and our FTE right now is currently 107.5, and at the start of 2020 it was 109.75. So we're almost back to full staffing, which is great. And again, we thank Leslie and Lori and Heather for getting everybody in here and getting them through orientation, and just in time to get us reopened on the 10th and through the next month. So that should be good. We did have a couple of vacancies due to resignations, and we'll be filling those after we get these done. And that's getting back to the normal trend of part-timers getting full-time jobs in other places. So that doesn't concern us too much. We did hire a number of internals as well, so they were promoted. So that will leave us with a few more part-time openings to fill next month. Do you have any questions about that? Okay. Unlike other industries, we are not having trouble attracting candidates. A lot of people who are in the library field want to stay in the library field, or many have just graduated from library school. So we've been very fortunate in that regard that we're getting a large number of applicants for every position. Lori also included the training that a new person receives when they go through orientation. And that has been streamlined as much as possible to be a 2-day orientation plus their time at our Coventry training branch. The ORE manual, that is Ohio Reference Excellence, that's been around for a very long time. And that gives people an overview to answering library questions, doing a reference interview, and how to make sure your answers are accurate. So I think, and then we just talked about the insurance, correct? So the approval to hire additional staff is a resolution because those jobs were created out of part-time positions, and that is on page 14. We just ask you to approve the 2 full-time positions.
Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Carlisle,
Yes.
Ms. Crenshaw,
Yes.
Ms. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mr. Gerbach,
Yes.
Ms. Iwamoto,
Yes.
Mr. McTighe,
Yes.
Mr. Toracchia.
Yes.
The next resolution is to approve the medical insurance for July 1st of 21 to June 30th of 2022 at a 5% increase. There will be absolutely no changes to the plan. And because it's only a 5% renewal rate, we're recommending that the library pay the additional 5% and not put the cost upon the employees. And we don't anticipate that it'll exceed 650,000 for the premium year. Not that it'll be less than that this year because of the having January through June at a different rate. Does anyone have any questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Do I have a
Second.
second?
I'll
Oh, yeah,
second.
Ms. Carlisle,
Yes.
Ms. Crenshaw,
Yes.
Ms. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mr. Gerbach,
Yes.
Ms. Iwamoto,
Yes.
Mr. McTighe,
Yes.
Mr. Toracchia.
Yes.
The next resolution is to hire a landscape architect for the Coventry Peace Park to be paid out of the building and repair fund. Nancy, would you like to talk about this a little bit?
Yes, so we are concerned about the state of the Coventry playground. It is continuing to deteriorate after 30-some years. So we find it necessary to right now create a plan for replacing the playground and doing other improvements to the Peace Park. When it comes down to it and it's time to decide about how we're going to pay for the larger project, we may do it in phases, break it down, but the first thing that really needs to happen is that playground should be replaced. It's not handicap accessible. It doesn't accommodate adults very well, and we would like to make it an all ages accessible playground. So we have requested that Jim McKnight, who is the city landscaper for the city of Cleveland, and Andrew Sargent, who is a relatively younger landscape architect who is a Rose Fellow and works for Neighborhood Progress, to help us with our develop the plan, conduct at least 3 community meetings that will engage hopefully all ages and all abilities, and create a plan for us so that we can do a cost estimate and figure out how this is going to flow over the next few years. Our intention is to raise money to do these improvements in the park, at least sharing them with the library and the public. I'm sorry, and the total for each Andrew and Jim is $9,000 a piece. So the total is 18. I have approached the Cleveland Foundation and they're keeping an eye on us so that they possibly might be able to step in and help at some point. And they did ask us to work with Future Heights because they're the CDC and we want to make sure that the park is integrated into the commercial district and the rest of the neighborhood. So we may also ask the city to make some improvements to the crosswalks and things like that and signage so that it can be a bigger plan than just fixing the playground.
There are any questions? Do I have a motion?
I have a quick question. What's our
Go ahead.
target? I know they're going to do the 3 presentations or the community engagements. What's our target to, have a full idea or something with?
I
What's our
believe that
date?
they plan to be complete by early October.
I think he said that. I couldn't remember. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll bring a mid-stage report to the board, and then when it's ready to go, we'll bring it back for your approval.
And per we're in Cleveland, do we anticipate getting any of the work done before the winter onset?
For the park, probably not.
Okay.
Mostly because we're also very occupied fixing Coventry, which we're gonna talk about in new business. And
Mhm.
then also we're working on Noble. And we will have to fundraise to some extent, and
Right.
I don't see us doing all three of those things at the same time.
Yeah, I think that was in the presentation, so I think I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
it's good to share it with the public as well. So that's our
Mhm.
plan, to get a plan by the fall and then start figuring it out. And we're
Mhm.
hoping, we had a lovely small fundraiser in April, and we raised $6,000, which will offset some of this, and we can get going.
I have another question. What's being done currently to kind of make sure the playground is safe? I know we know it's at end of life, but I was there this weekend and with my son, and I know some pieces seem to be kind of falling off.
We have so in June, we're gonna have a cleanup day, and usually that's when we inspect it and make plans for repairs. Also, when anyone sees something, they report it to us. And I do have Tim and Leroy, our facilities people, walking the grounds. So hopefully between those three things, if there's something you notice, please let us know. And it's been kind of wet, so I think there very likely could be issues. And those are the three ways. So just let us know. And I know we're gonna be out there for the cleanup as well. And I'll ask Tim to take an extra look.
Can we post something maybe in the library in the Coventry building with that very request? If you see something, let us know. Maybe a
Sure.
box on the counter, with slips can be put in or something.
Mhm.
Thank you.
That's a great idea.
If there's no further questions or a motion,
All motion.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Carlisle's had to step away. Ms. Crenshaw,
Yes.
Ms. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mr. Gerbach,
Yes.
Ms. Iwamoto,
Yes.
Mr. McTighe,
Yes.
Mr. Toracchio.
Yes.
Ms. Levin, do you have any information that's to the Friends and it updates at all?
I just know that they had a meeting on Thursday, and their revenue is slowly increasing because of the book sales and the fact that we're open on Mondays. That helps them quite a bit. And they're planning on having some events later in the summer for their membership.
Ms. Llewellyn, do you have anything for a president's report?
A couple questions as usual. Nancy, did we ever get an update on the archives? Are they complete? We had a
Library,
lot of interruption there. Remember, it was going to take, I just don't know the status.
most of our library archives are either digitized or stored correctly now. That's what will go into the local history room along with lots of other things. So yes, I know that Jessica Robinson is also working on a number of projects. One is has to do with our yearbooks. The other, she's trying to work with the Sun Press to see if we can digitize their newspapers, because no one has done that yet, and we can come to an agreement with them to do it. We would like to. I think that would be a really valuable contribution to the community.
And also, you sent us a report in reference to the feedback from the Noble neighborhood. Can you tell me about how many people that was? I think you were actually there.
Are you talking about Noble, or are you talking about the?
No, when you spoke to, let me see, where were you?
Oh, I went to the rope club.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe that was it.
That was really fun. It was a very different thing for me. There were about 30 participants on a Zoom meeting, and we discussed censorship in Ohio and in the country. And we talked about the Dr. Seuss books and the Dave Pilkey book that recently were pulled by their own people. And we have not actually decided what we're going to do about that as a library. We have a task force that's making a recommendation to us. We also talked about censorship in Ohio prisons and how that compares to other prisons. And we talked about the fact that other prisons are teaching their prisoners computer skills to give them a good trade for when they leave, when they serve their time. And in Ohio, that has been taken away from the prisoners because they think that they're using it to commit crimes. And that did happen in one small case out of Marion Correctional Facility, but one bad apple shouldn't spoil everything. And there is even a way to teach computer skills without the whole thing being tied to the internet. So there is a way they could have done it, or they can do it so that they can learn them in like real time and not have to be connected to the outside. But hopefully we can reform that through legal channels. And I know that the libraries would be a friend of the, put in a friend of the court brief to support ending the censorship in prisons. It was fun. I hope I've never been in the Rofan Club, so I hope that someday they'll invite me so I can visit. It's a historical place.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted a little more information. And last, I know we've been doing the OLC meetings. Did anyone else have a chance to go? I think I went last Monday.
I think Kim's going this Thursday.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the Thursday evening one. It just happened to be one that worked out well with my schedule. So, Dana, how was the one that you attended?
We're in public, but it was,
Okay.
you know, it was nothing much to say. I mean, it's at least good that they have additional proposals to put forth if the first one, or the one I guess that's on the table now, doesn't move through. That's really the gist of, what I got. So we have to just make sure to keep following in terms.
Most of the representatives are not from Northeast Ohio this time, so it's maybe a little less valuable for us. But I have been writing, and I hope you are too, to support the libraries, and hopefully that will do us some good.
Yeah, so that was in reference to the funding. I'm sorry I didn't say it because I know Kim, but everyone may not. So that's for the, the funding for the future, and that's about it. But lastly, I think that's great on the touchless doors. I wanted to make sure to shout that out because it's so valuable both for our handicapped community and for unseen occurrences such as this pandemic. So I'm really glad we're moving forward and getting that done.
Thank you. I'll tell Tim, he's worked hard on it.
Director's report, Ms. Levin.
So speaking of the state government, we're a little bit in a quandary about how to respond to the lifting of the mask mandate for businesses and just about everyone, because only 42% of the public has been vaccinated, and certainly not children who spend a lot of time at the library. So we have a meeting with OLC on Thursday, and we've been having some discussions with our managers for the last week or so to try to figure out a way to keep everybody safe and accommodate public needs. We don't want to argue with people, but I think generally our impression is that we'll tell the staff to worry about their own health. So we'll probably keep masking as the library staff, and we will not try to control what we cannot control with the public. We'll keep our plexiglass up, and we will continue to social distance, and we will continue to wear masks until the time that we feel like there are more vaccinations in the community. if you look at the number of cases in Ohio, Cuyahoga County has had the most cases and the most deaths. So I think there is some reason to believe that we might handle this news differently than some places that are more rural or that haven't had as much of an impact. So if any of the board members, since you're going to have to help us support this policy, if you have anything you want to add to that, I'd be curious to know.
You know,
Are we going to keep the mask required signs up?
I don't believe we should.
No.
It's so confusing to people, and I don't want to poke the bear. But I think we'll say that the staff will continue to be masked, because that way we can protect ourselves.
I think it's so complex, you know, as you talk about with the managers, and, you know, you're pointing to the fact that only 42% of the population has been vaccinated, maybe have somewhere in there that, you know, October 1 we'll revisit, or when we reach 99% vaccination or whatever. Something,
Yeah.
so you don't even have to respond, or the associates don't have to respond to people asking, well, when's it going to change, and what's
Right.
holding you back? They could just say, well, we're revisiting 10/1/21. We'll revisit that, you know, just to make it very specific, so that
Yeah.
the amount.
Mm-hmm.
of
Why are you using that date, Tyler, for the start of flu season?
No. I was just thinking, I mean, it could be December 1st, or, you know.
I think
It was
that might be a good date, because
But that is a good date. I just was
Yeah.
wondering, is that why you were using it?
Well, you make me sound smarter than I am, but sure, yeah.
there's going to be a big push to vaccinate children before school starts. And if you do that, like school plus 2 weeks, that would be like around August 29th plus 2 weeks. So the middle of September would probably be a good time to see how far we've gotten. And then also flu season will be coming, and we'll have some idea of what's going on too. But honestly, I think it's going to be a month by month thing, because things change so quickly. But I think that maybe October 1st will be a big date for us.
Yeah. Or just even some kind of statement to have decided.
Yeah,
to
I
say
think we should have decided. You both pointed out two good things. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tyler.
No,
You pointed out good things, Nancy, with the school, and then Tyler, the October 1st. So we internally should make a decision based on what's going on out there in society, the school district, our governor, etc. You know, mid-September, so not too far behind Labor Day, and that way we'd be prepared to have it available to our patrons by October 1st. So if they have a solid date that they know that we're going to give them, you know, our new decision, I think that's better than, you know, flexing all about. I think this is very confusing. It shouldn't be, but it kind of is. And that's because a large part of the people that will go unmasked right now is not vaccinated people. It's the people who were already going unmasked because they weren't going to get the vaccine anyway. So it becomes, you know, difficult. But I, for one, and I'm hoping the board, you know, sees it the same, we really have to support our staff. And I don't want them to have to argue with people we're already seeing that, you know, here in these beginning days, and it's a goofy, bad situation. But the staff should be protected. They've been great through this whole thing. This is their workplace. So unlike all the rest of us, you know, where this is an option to go in or out any building, business, etc., this is their workplace, and they should be protected. And we have to support that. So I hope, you know, our messaging does that.
I'm a little confused right now. What is our messaging? Are we saying
well, currently
no masks?
No. Well, on June 2nd, and I know that this might be updated on Monday, so could change again. But as of June 2nd, all of the COVID orders from the state of Ohio will be over. So that means that no one will be required to wear a mask inside anywhere. So if the visitors to the library are no longer required to wear a mask, we will still probably ask our staff to wear masks to protect themselves and others who work here. And that will be the only thing we can say right now. And then we will revisit it sometime later in the summer as to whether the staff can also not wear masks. I think that's where we are.
Yep. And the reason I suggested the date is just to have some kind of statement as so it saves your associates time from having to respond or get into some contrarian argument over something
Right.
silly that, that way people aren't bombarding them. They can just address the state.
And Vikas, for me, I was adding in that COVID-19 is still a threat. And because the mixed messaging in terms of the CDC, the governor, and the changes, individual businesses can still have different rules, but it becomes awfully hard to enforce them, as we've already had difficult enforcing them when it was the law of the land. And, to ask our people to do so when things kind of ranked above us say you don't have to wear the mask. So I was simply saying is that I don't want our staff to have to go back and forth with people, as we're already seeing videos out there just in these 3 to 4 days of, this going on because businesses have chose to still enforce it. So our messaging should be that for our staff, we intend to continue to treat COVID-19 as a threat. And then we'll have to fall behind our state government, which is our governor, saying that as of June 2nd, these things are going away, these mandates.
We will also still have available wipes and cleaning supplies for people who wish to wipe down anything that they're going to touch. And we have these touchless doors and other precautions that we put into place. So we'll still be careful because we're a busy public place, and we'll just see what we can do.
And we have to be mindful that children are a big part of our patronage, and children are just starting to get vaccinated.
Age 12 and up.
Right.
And the mask mandate was age 10 and up. And they're hoping that there will be more vaccine available for younger children by the fall as well. And that will help us make our decision, because at least they would have the opportunity to be vaccinated as opposed to choosing not to. So we'll see. Why should this be any different than everything else? It's just confusing.
I have one more logistics question. If the public health orders are ending June 2nd, are we required to meet in person in June?
They passed a law, I think 2 months ago, saying that public entities could continue to meet on Zoom until December 31st. So we truly could do this through December, but when Nancy and Kim and I have been talking, we were thinking maybe with August, if we can, since we have Brody Nelson and Meeting Room A available, that we'll probably see if some of you would like to come in for an in-person meeting. And those that don't, we have the projector system down there. So if there's 3 people that still want to Zoom and 4 people will come in person, we could handle it that way. But if we wanted to stay entirely on Zoom until the end of the year, we can. But I think by August, September, we'd like to look at getting back together in person with everyone.
And we will be masked.
Right.
So in my report, we also mentioned that we have formed a task force to decide what to do about the children's books that have been pulled by their estate or publisher. Another bit of good news is that the church property is currently owned by the library. We have gone in to start working on some of the violations that we had to remediate before we pass muster with the city. Today I talked to the maintenance person at the church, and he's got some information for us, so he's helping us. And this Sunday, I'll be attending services. I was invited by the congregation to share their last service. So if anyone would like to join me at 10 o'clock on Sunday, it will be my pleasure to be there. It makes me a little sad because I know that this is an important community in Cleveland Heights. And I do wish them all the best, but they chose this path, and I know that they're going to be okay, and so are we, and it will be a good thing in the long run. We did get some results back from Compass Consulting about our diversity audit, but results are not actions. We're going to be meeting every Wednesday until June to decide how we're going to respond to the information that we've gathered. There are a lot of policies that can be updated, and also actions to be taken to refine our policies and our procedures with things like hiring, orientation, some policies about harassment, things like that, that we can improve upon. I don't think the news was horrible, but I don't think it was 100% the greatest either. I think everyone has room for improvement, and we're looking forward to doing that. We already mentioned the architects and the local history room and the health renewal. Cheryl shared with us that the check us out should be in your mailbox for summer. And we are very excited because of all of the outdoor programs. And we've had huge response to our story times that have been held outside. Lots of kids are coming in all of our locations. And I even got a note from the Obama executive today that said it was so nice to see the children sitting outside in a story time. So it's fun that other people can see us in action when we're out and about. We're creating summer reading ads for the Heights Observer and Mosaic Magazine. And you saw on the cover of the Check Us Out that the theme is Tales and Tales spelled two ways. And then for the adults and the teens, it's Trials and Triumphs, which is harder to say. So we're very excited about that. And a lot of the bookkeeping is online, so kids can do it at home with their family or come in the library and fill out their forms. And the school district has agreed to let us be their summer reading program. So I hope children will have lots of incentive to participate. And in the government report, you saw that the plain dealer reported on our opposition to the curfew and on Chief Mecklenburg's report, which was very heartwarming to hear. And we just have to stay on them and make sure they actually do repeal the laws. And I'm very, very proud of the library for sticking up for the kids and not letting it drop. And a number of the city council people were definitely on our side, so that was great. And we've asked for those records about the arrests, and we never saw the ages. It wasn't available in the information that we got, and also the race. So we had not been given that information, and so I was pleased that Chief Mecklenburg shared that without really having to be pushed. That was good of her. And then in the state, we had a number of elections in May, and all of the libraries passed their levies. The closest ones to us were probably Lorraine, which is in Cleveland, and the biggest one was probably Akron Public Library, which both passed, all of them passed. So that's good news. And that is all I have. Kim, do you want to go ahead with the public service report?
Yes, absolutely. Everything should be highlighted if you're looking at the print version, but I'll go through the highlights. The first one from the April public service report is adult services, some very well-attended local history programs, including the most popular one was the history of the Cinder Path, which after the in-person or not in-person, but the broadcast at the time, then it was loaded onto our YouTube channel. And as of a couple weeks ago, it had 116 views. I'm sure that's gone up since then. So we've been doing, COVID has given us this opportunity to record our programs as well, and then upload them to our YouTube channel. So that's also useful for customers who can't make a program on a given night. Continuing on, under circulation services, we did launch the tablet lending program. Earlier, I found out that some versions of this packet said a table lending program, and if you have those notes that say that, I apologize. I must have just had a typo in some of the versions, but here at Lee Road, we launched a computer tablet lending program as a pilot. We want to see how it does. We want to work out the kinks here at Lee Road before adding tablets to the branches. So for any customers listening, they're at Lee Road for now. Hopefully we can expand that, and we purchased 10 for loan. Moving on to the continuing education department, I listed, we've got their classes, their Facebook Live events. Those are still very, very popular, and Heather reported that there are 2 happy hour talks during the month of April. One of them had 60 views, the other had 109, so those are very good numbers, and those continue to also increase in popularity. The Coventry Highlight was, Nancy kind of already mentioned it, that customers are really enjoying events that are happening in the Peace Park, and they are really trying to do so much programming outside. They've got the perfect location to do it, so hopefully they'll be able to get in most of those programs outside this summer. We had a nice highlight from Noble this past month. Our Refugee Services librarian, Steve Sanders, I know we say his name a lot during board meetings because of the contact that he provides to us with the Bhutanese community. They had their 4th anniversary celebration. Steve attended, as he does every year, and the library was awarded a certificate of appreciation. So that's very, very heartwarming, especially because they have been harder to connect with during COVID. And Steve reported that to us well over a year ago. In the early days of the pandemic, we would ask him, are you seeing or hearing from the Bhutanese community? And he said it was very, very sporadic, and it was hard to connect with them, especially in the early days of the pandemic. So it's nice to be reconnected to that group again. I'll move on to University Heights. We have a picture that Sarah provided of Coco and Cooper for their first spring story time. The day after that snowstorm on April Fool's Day. Luckily, we've had better weather since then. They've gotten some really good numbers as well. And Cheryl Banks told me today that on Friday they took the book bike over to the Walter Stinson Park, and she said it was just packed. A lot of people were just out at the park anyway, happy to see the book bike, but also a lot of people there for story time. So it's nice that the city University Heights has partnered with us to allow us such extensive use of that park as well. And then finally, from Youth Services, Sam has reported that we're getting more preschools and daycares participating in Zoom story times on Wednesdays. They're also continuing the evening ones as well. So those numbers are increasing. They are also looking to do a lot of their programming outside. I think just system-wide, that's our hope, and our first course of action over the summer is to do as much outside as we possibly can. So those are the public service highlights from the month of April. Does anyone have any questions about them? Okay, I will move on. On page 26 is the circulation breakdown by item type and by our different streaming services. The final part of the migration between RV Digital and Overdrive happens tomorrow, although some access has already gone away. As of Friday, they removed links to content. The biggest thing that we're going to see, that we're probably going to hear about, is the fact that Acorn TV, which was affiliated with RV Digital and was by far the most popular product line that they had, Acorn TV is no longer in the public library game. So I did research with the help of Chuck Collins and Jenny Green. They helped me contact RV Digital, contact Acorn TV. I tried talking to our CleveNet colleagues, most of whom also said the same thing. We're all in the same boat. Acorn TV is going for, they either want to be the Netflix of British TV, if so, more power to them, but they currently have no plans to offer any kind of public library service, period. So it's disappointing, but there's nothing, it's completely out of our hands. They're not migrating to Overdrive. They did not want to be part of the Overdrive model of service, whereas these other lines do. So there might be some RV Digital numbers during the month of May because this migration had gotten postponed. It was supposed to be at the end of March. I said that to you for months and then they postponed it. But that's where we are right now. There may be a lot of customer questions. We've really informed the staff as things have gone along because customers might be unhappy, but it's out of my hands. Are there any questions about any of our services, streaming or physical? All right, I'll move on.
Kim,
Yeah.
you have at University Heights that really big number, 298 for the 8. That's a really good number. I don't see that elsewhere. What's that about?
Tell me, Dana, what you're looking at.
The preschool 298 for the 8 Zoom story times.
That's youth services. So Sam reported that number. The attendance was 298 system wide.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure. That's still a good number though. That's about 36, 37 per per story time. Yeah.
That's a great number.
That is.
Honestly, when they're in person, we try to limit the group to about 12 children and 12 parents. So Zoom allows us to have more participants.
Will we consider keeping it for when it's live, and could we Zoom it too?
We're talking about that.
I think that's one thing we may. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't know if you want to answer, Nancy, but we're talking about ways in which we can simultaneously be filming while providing in-person service for the families that want to come in.
Yeah, that sounds great. I use Noble as a preschool teacher a lot as an administrator, and when we remodeled University Heights, I used it a lot, so that's like, I know that number, like I tangibly can feel that is really good.
Yeah. Yes. So we don't want to lose those families that want to continue participating, but would rather do it virtually.
Yeah, because they might not be using their home branch for people that live in Cleveland Heights. And but it sounds really worth keeping if we can. Thank you.
You're welcome. Circulation statistics are on page 27. Of course, we had good numbers, a little lower than March, but not too terribly off the mark, especially considering we have one less day of service during the month of April than March. The number that I wanted to point out to all of you is the visitor table on page 28. I have communicated with Matt Hoffman about this because I believe the Lee Road people counter is way off. I think the Noble one's a little high, but just Lee Road cannot have lower numbers than any other branch. And in this table that you see, they have lower numbers than Noble. So, and that also happened during the month of March. So I've asked Matt Hoffman to take a look at it. He was really busy trying to get everything sort of relaunched for May 10th last week. I'm hoping we can figure something out. I mean, I have to report the numbers that we have, but I don't believe they're accurate for Lee Road or for Noble. I feel okay about Coventry and UH's, but I think there's just something going on with the people counter. So I'm aware of that, and hopefully we'll get a resolution soon.
Kim, I wonder when we've had our power glitches, if that could have
Gosh,
done something to them, because
There
it seemed
could
like it affected everything else.
that's right. Debbie's referring to the fact we've had a couple of really quick power surges or power outages. That absolutely could be part of that. But I believe Noble is also having some issues with theirs too. So anyway, we'll look into that and get this corrected as soon as we can. Any other questions about stats?
I just want to point out that between, if you look at January and February, and then you look at March and April, our circulation went up like 30,000, which is amazing and not surprising, because before COVID, it was at 170 a month in April a few years ago, and now it's at 116. So I
Right.
imagine it's just going to be up.
Right,
Really
and the fact of reopening on Mondays, getting Lee Road back to, I mean, Lee Road was at 52 hours per week, just like the branches. And now we've reopened to the 72.5. We're adding 20 more hours of service per week. And we just started that last Monday. So maybe by the first full month will be June. I think looking at June 2021 to June 2019 will be very telling.
Yeah, and we had snow in April, so that didn't help.
We don't want to jinx anything. We're done.
Hopefully no more of that.
Done with snow. Okay, thank you.
We don't have anything for unfinished business, anything from the board. The next item is new business, a resolution for approval to advertise for a request for qualifications for the Coventry branch upgrades out of the building and repair fund. We've hired, and you've spoken with Jim McMillan, whose company is doing the HVAC design for the building, and then we've increased his contract to partner with an architect to look at doing the renovations to the basement and that. And what this will allow us to do is to go out and get requests for qualifications from architectural engineering firms for a design build, to work with the HVAC engineer, and then to actually complete the project. If we put these out in June, we hope to come to the board in July to hire someone, and then hopefully everything will start going in August, September, so we can get all of this done by the end of the calendar year. And there are budgets after the resolution that show you what our estimated costs are for Coventry and Noble, and even the Peace Park over the next 3 years or so.
Debbie,
Nancy, you want to
I
add
do
anything?
believe that the calendar is to start construction in October,
Okay,
be done by mid-January.
okay.
Okay, just so we don't upset people later when they say, I thought it was going to be September. But yes, so do you have any questions about any of that?
I do. I have a question. Within the RFQ, is there any language that asks companies to identify like their racial composition, just so we can ensure that the design build team is diverse and that there are specifically Black, Indigenous, people of color who are part of this project?
Yes, there's a boilerplate paragraph that we will be using that says that will identify minority and women-owned businesses, and that we will give some preference to include hiring them in the contract. And I do believe that when we do our diversity audit stuff, that will become part of all of our procurement policies.
So it's interesting that I forget what that term is, but Gabe and I learned this weekend actually that within that boilerplate, it ends up being, if they do qualify as minority women-owned business, I think like something like 90% are white women-owned. So I think, I don't know how, I forget how to go about that, but just keeping that in mind that even though the company might meet that, which is really great, it still may be majority white-owned.
I will talk to
Even I
Julie.
went through the phase one.
REI.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yes. I'll talk to Julie and see if we can make that more firm so that we achieve what we actually set out to do and not lean back on the old practice. And we have our contracts for the building portion reviewed by an attorney whose last name is Seifert, and I will also make sure that she gets it in there too.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
We have to come off mute, Deb. That's why it's usually a pause.
I know. And always two people at the same time. So Max is the second. Ms. Carlisle. Oh, she's still out. Ms. Crenshaw,
Yes.
Ms. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mr. Gerbach,
Yes.
Ms. Iwamoto,
Yes.
Mr. McTighe,
Yes.
Mr. Tarakia.
Yes.
Is there any other business for the good of the order before we entertain a motion to adjourn? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Second.
A second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All righty. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good
good
night.